Okay, doing a little food prep today. I've got my plastic bags here. I'm going to actually separate these ribeyes, chuck eye steaks rather, and freeze them. I'm gonna make some hard-boiled eggs, some crispy fried pork belly, and I might actually freeze half of this package. I'm gonna make a pound of bacon, and normally I would make the hard-boiled eggs first because my ninja foodie over here would be clean, but I actually made some pork belly yesterday and I never drained the fat. So I'm gonna make the pork belly first, and I'm also gonna make some butter bites, and the butter's not on the counter yet. So I'm gonna grab that now. So for our butter bites, I'm gonna make 2 batches, and one is going to be flavored with some vanilla and some Element chocolate salt. And the other one is just going to be regular. And so for the regular, just plain brown butter bites, I usually use 1 stick of salted and 1 stick of unsalted. And I'm gonna put these in my aluminum pan. Now I'm going to turn this on about somewhere between low and medium, around 3 on my electric stove here. And we're gonna let that just... Okay, so I had this preheat at 400, so I just started it. It was at 20 minutes. I'm gonna put this pork belly all cut up here in a single layer in this air fryer on pressure crisp, sorry, or air crisp is what it's called. And it's actually put that in there. We'll kind of spread it around. Ouch. Don't touch the edges. And if you want to look in there, see how it's in there. And I'm going to close it and just put this back up to about 18 minutes, and it's at 400 degrees. And let that for air fry. And the rest of that pork belly I put in to a freezer bag, and I'm going to freeze this to use later. And meanwhile, we'll come back to our butter. It's melting nicely. I'm gonna get a silicone spatula and just give that a little stir. That continue, and then we'll probably get the bacon going next while the pork belly is air frying. Actually, I'm gonna split up these were just bones from the pork belly, and I might pressure cook these later, like into a soup or something, into like a bone broth, but I haven't decided yet. But I'm gonna put these in bags for the freezer, and then we'll get that bacon started. Just wanted to point out the butter has started to sizzle and crackle, and it gets kind of foamy, and that's the first step in making brown butter bites. And so I want to just give it a stir every couple of minutes, and I will come back and show you what the next stage looks like when it stops sizzling and it starts to actually separate the solids, and you can see when it starts to turn into brown butter. Okay, I'm just about 10 minutes left. I'm checking the pork belly. I'm going to kind of stir it around in there. Sometimes I deliberately flip them over and make sure that the crispy side is flipped so that the other side is on the bottom, but it really doesn't matter. I've done it where I've forgotten about them until the end, and they come out just as good. There we go. So we'll go ahead and put that back on for its last 10 minutes. You can see the butter is starting to kind of clear up. The foam is kind of going away. It's still sizzling. You can hear it. Still sizzling a little bit, but it's not as foamy. And as we start to stir, you might even be able to see some of the solids, but it's going to go totally quiet before it really starts to turn brown. You see the little white milk solids kind of floating around in there. that's what's gonna turn brown. Or more like an amber color. And just so you know what's going on here, I've got set up my measuring cup, and that's what I'm going to pour it into, and then I'll be pouring it into these molds and put these in the freezer. And then these are going to be the molds, the silicone molds for like candy molds. I'm going to use those for the flavored one. So this is just what I'm using for the plain brown butter. Again, we're not quite there yet. It's gonna be a while. And it's been maybe 12 minutes or so to get to this point. It's probably going to be another 7 to 10 minutes before it's ready to take it off the burner. And again, I still have it on 3. Sometimes when it starts to go quiet and then get kind of a less bubbly foam on top, I will turn it down to 2 for the last 10 minutes or so it doesn't burn. Although I've never burned it. Even when I've sort of forgotten about it because I was doing something else, it's never really burned. Here it's quiet now. It's bubbling again, but it's quiet and getting kind of foamy. And so it's probably going to start to brown. And during this phase, it's actually a little better to stir it a little more frequently. Up until now, I think I've only stirred it 3 times. And so now I'm going to stir it every minute or 2, and then I'm going to turn it down just a little bit to 2. Good? Okay, so you can see it's starting to kind of get a little amber in color now. And so I'm going to stir this a little bit. I'm going to make sure that nothing is sticking to burn on the bottom of the pan. And I'm going to give this maybe only has another minute. So I'll check when we made the first video and see what time it was, and I'll tell you at the end exactly how long it was on the burner. You see how it's kind of amber in there. Usually this foam will go away before I pour it out, but I may have just stirred it all up again. And you can, if you hold it a little closer, Grace, you can hear that it's not making that sizzling sound anymore. So that's all those milk solids are turning brown. It's like amber, orangey brown color. And that is what tastes so yummy in the brown butter bites. And there it goes. It's starting to dissipate this foaminess. So if I just stir it a little slower, see it's got the little brown bits are starting to bubble up and kind of spread around on the surface, which is delicious. And I think this is the point that I like it. Some people like it darker, but I like it like this. So I'm going to turn the stove off. You can just follow me right over here. I'm going to pour it right into this. And then we can take those pork belly right out of the air fryer too. Okay, this is going to go. So you can, well actually I'm just going to put them on this plate. So these are done, I'm sure. Yeah, they're yummy looking. I'm just going to put them right on the plate to cool. And these are like candy, crispy, yummy, really super hot right now. And a couple more. And these can just cool here. Once they're cool enough, of course, you have to taste test one, but, well, I do. My daughter doesn't like them. I don't know. So, but we'll let them cool for a good minute. This also needs to cool because I need to wash this before I can make the hard-boiled eggs. Why don't you stop it and start it again. So now I'm gonna pour this evenly through, and all of those brown bits are gonna be on the bottom there. And so I'm gonna, once we get to that, I'm going to try and scoop them out evenly. And I don't always end up with enough, but here we go. So I'm just gonna pour it into the, whoop, that was a little overfull. You want it to be just below the bottom, and usually 2 sticks of butter. What I'm gonna do It might be easier to film from the other side because I have to do this right-handed. So I'm gonna take a spoonful of this and be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If any of them are over full, they might overflow, but then the butter will just kind of be across the top of this. Okay, this is going to go right into the freezer. And this cutting board balances it quite nicely. So that's gonna stay in there for probably a half an hour, maybe a little longer, and then I can put it in a plastic bag, and this is how I store them, in a Ziploc freezer bag. So this is what's left of the last bag. So the next thing we're gonna get started with is the bacon. This is a pound of bacon from Whole Foods that is it does have some sugar in it, but you'll notice that there are 0 carbs per serving. So like Dr. Berry says, that is fine. It is uncured applewood smoked bacon. And I'm gonna cut this in the style of Dr. Ken Berry. I'm going to cut this into little like bacon chips. Just not wanting to get my hands slimy. At least not both of them right away. And so I'm gonna cut this like this. Oh, and I'm gonna cut this like this. That's all I need the knife for, excuse me. I'm gonna turn the stove burner on high. I've got this pan, which is another like a aluminum copper bottom pan. And I'm gonna go ahead and spread these out, the whole pound in this pan. We'll go ahead and just start slapping them in there, and it will start to sizzle as it heats up. I start sometimes from a preheated pan, sometimes from a cold pan, and it pretty much doesn't make a difference. So comes out the same in the end. My hands are getting slimy now. I usually put the extra fatty pieces on the bottom because they will, do a nice coating along the bottom so nothing sticks. If you do the less fatty sections like this that have more of the marbling on it, that sometimes they'll stick to the bottom when it starts to get hot. So almost there. Last bunch of meat here, and I always get thick sliced bacon because I like it to be thick and crispy. I do cook it until it's crispy, and I just get tongs. I'm going to start to turn it right away. Initially hasn't really started doing anything yet. You see that even the pieces that were, there's one here that were on the bottom, are not yet starting to cook too much, but I like to give it a good whirl, and then we're going to put the top on. And it's a piece of bacon fat. There we go. And we're gonna let it sit a minute or two, and then I'll stir it again, and stir it every couple of minutes. Okay, so, lots of cheese. And I just stir this again. I wish you could smell that. No, it's delicious. Stirring it up. If you can see that some of the pieces are cooked, getting them up near the top, but nothing is really super cooked yet, which is good. We want it to cook evenly. So that's it. That was our first stir. So it's gonna be about 5 or 6 more minutes since the last time I did stir it once in between though, but we didn't record. But We are just kind of trying to get any pieces that still haven't seemed to touch the bottom. I'm trying to flip them so that they touch the bottom. I'm trying to turn it around so I can see this side. Just like that. Get this right in the middle. That doesn't look like it's really touched the bottom yet. You can see all that fat kind of surrounding all the bacon now is going to help it cook, even if it's not touching the bottom. All right. Where it likes to wobble. This pan is just not even on the bottom, so those pieces I actually want to get them. Let's switch this around. Let's get these in the middle too, so that they're more in the oil, in the fat. They're in the back. Okay. And I turned it down just a hair, just to 9, just so it doesn't burn. The parts that are on the bottom don't burn. And I feel like I need a weight on this, but I don't have anything that will hold it in place. So we'll just keep an eye on it. And then the butter, this is our second batch of butter bites, is at the point where it's not making noise anymore. Now this is 2 sticks of unsalted butter, because we're going to put some vanilla and some flavoring in it at the end. I don't do that while it's on the burner, because it tends to burn and confuse me as far as how much is actually brown butter and how much is the flavoring. So we are just gonna stir it, and it takes longer for unsalted butter to get the little brown bits in it, because I think the salt in large part is what browns. So the unsalted butter doesn't do this as quickly. It actually takes a little longer. And then when this is done, we'll pour it into the measuring cup, and that's where we will add the chocolate salt and the vanilla bean. I use vanilla bean as opposed to vanilla extract because it just holds its flavor a little better in the candy in the freezer. All right. Okay, so in here now I've washed this bucket, whatever you want to call it, the dish that you put in the Ninja Foodie. I've got this wire rack in here like this. There's about a cup of water just in the bottom, and I'm gonna add my eggs now. And so I don't know, I'm not gonna use all. I'll probably put 8 eggs in here, so it'll leave us 4 in the fridge until we get more. Let's see here. Kind of spread out so they're gonna touch each other anyway, it looks like. There we go. A little bit. Move this one here a little bit. And they're not touching each other. If you can get them not touching each other and not touching the side, even better. But you know, sometimes I do a dozen and there's no having them not touch each other. They're gonna move around anyway. And so this is the pressure lid. Put this on. Make sure it's on pressure. And we're gonna turn it on the front here. Pressure on high, and I'm going down to 4 minutes because I like them sort of on the soft boil side. And we're gonna start this and it'll build up. And once it gets to pressure, it'll go for 4 minutes, and then I will quick release it, which I'll show you when we get there. And this is just about done. Okay, one more stir in it. I'm gonna stir it slowly so it doesn't spit at me, and then kind of squish it around. And I'm gonna leave the top off. It's got another, some of the pieces need a couple more, maybe another minute or 2, and those will be the last ones to come out. But I'm gonna leave the lid off while I go and get a dish to put this on. All right, that's that one there. I'll flip it over. Get a dish. This is going to be very greasy. I'm going to put this like this. A little tricky to work around the butter. Just move that over slightly. And let's see, I'm going to turn this off so it can Yeah. Little burnt bacon bits on the bottom. Just kind of rolling it all in the oil here. And it'll finish cooking as it comes out and drains. Yeah. Beautiful. And now with this pan, it burns a little bit. I was using one of my older pans for the bacon that I turned into the bacon pot, but it does have a non-stick coating, and I noticed that the non-stick coating is starting to kind of degrade, and so I stopped using that. So I'm using this pan instead. So I can't make another pound of bacon yet because I have to clean off that burnt part. Otherwise it would just kind of ruin the pan. So this is all we'll make for today, or for now. And then I do have another pound of bacon. I have a couple actually in the fridge. So maybe tomorrow or later, if we eat all this, I'll make more. Yes, that's correct. And I'm gonna just add this, oops, to the fat here because I'm not gonna save this. This was store-bought. Well, it's fine anyway. Sometimes I do save the bacon grease, but I actually have a whole mason jar full of bacon grease in the fridge right now, so I'm not gonna save any today. Let this sit and make it a little cooler. And I have some on the counter too, bacon grease that I use for cooking. I don't use nearly as much as I produce when I make bacon, so I don't need to save it every time.
And why do you save it?
To cook with. Instead of using vegetable oil or olive oil. Sometimes I'll use olive oil for some things anyway, but because the bacon grease will kind of smoke and the olive oil won't. But I only use olive oil or avocado oil or maybe coconut oil to cook. I don't use any vegetable oils anymore. You can see that it's just starting to kind of brown a little bit, and it's been a good 15 minutes. It's not even, this is not ready to come out of here yet because there aren't enough little brown bits to spread out over to candy molds. So I'm gonna keep at it. And so this went off about 20 seconds ago. It completed its pressure cook, and so I'm gonna bring it quick release. Oops. There we go. I'm gonna hand this off to you. Open that away from me. You can turn it off. You can go ahead and look at those eggs. Well, I know it's split. Oops, sorry, Addie. While that was releasing, I filled this bowl with ice and cold water, and now these eggs are gonna go right into an ice bath. And it's really just to stop the cooking process. Again, I like mine a little on the soft boiled side, not runny, but just soft enough that it's not really cakey in my mouth when I eat them. All right, there we go. So we'll let those sit for just a minute. So put that away. And then let me check on the butter. And here we go. If you look at this, you can see finally this unsalted butter is getting those beautiful orange little milk solids in there. It needs another minute or so. Yeah, I'm probably gonna turn this down to 1 and let this continue for another couple minutes while I peel my eggs. Some extra paper towels here and a bowl. Put them in. And see that over. I got a little base here. And folding this over. I'll take the broken one first. You can see this usually comes off quite easily. Sometimes the first one or two hasn't been in the ice bath long enough. It'll be a little bit more crumbly. Sometimes it all comes off in one little pull. There we go, beautiful. So you can see it's nice and dark now. It's a little bit darker than the other, which is fine because this one doesn't have any salt in it. It's just unsalted butter. So we'll put this in here. Scoop all those yummy milk solids out of there. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is I want it to be a little flavored. Like, it's not sweet because I'm not putting any sweetener in here. I'm going to take about half a teaspoon of vanilla bean and mix that in there.
Smells really good.
Just needs a hint. And then I'm going to put the chocolate salt in there because it gives it just a little bit of salty and a little bit of chocolate. So it's like, then with the vanilla, it's almost like salted caramel. And it sizzles a little bit. The salt in there reacts with the heat and the liquid. I'm just gonna stir that up. And then, I know I just stirred it up, but I'm gonna let it settle so that I could pour it into the molds. Well, I can do this one of two ways. I can pour it, actually I'll probably do it this way. Let's do it this way. I'm gonna stir it as I go and pour it into the molds and then stir some more. So this way, maybe it'll be a little more evenly distributed than normal. I need to go a little bit closer to the top, especially if I'm doing it this way. Okay, let me stir, oops, sorry. Stir some more. I am not getting a lot of solids in here. Oops. All right, here we go. Doesn't want to come out of my spoon. Let's do that one. Let me scoop some of the butter from these overfilled ones to this empty one here. Okay. It should be good. This was a lot of this. We'll put them in there. Spread that out a little more. This was a big one here. Put some in there. I like this because I could see where all the good, beautiful chunkiness is. And that's also the chocolate. The chocolate is a dark color as well. So, oops, that's not the full one anymore. Or the empty one anymore. We good? So take this one. And now this will take the place of where the other ones were in the freezer. You can see the other ones are solid now, so they're still not all the way solid to take them out of the mold, but they're solid enough that they're not gonna get all gooey. And you wanna put back, Grace, I'm gonna put the ice away. So I put this out of there. I did go ahead and make another ½ pound of bacon because I figured that 1 pound of bacon was not going to last me more than a day. So here's our pork belly. It's delicious. Let's see how nice and it's crispy, nice and fatty in there. Can't see it, but 8 hard-boiled eggs, 1.5 pounds of bacon, and we've got our vanilla and chocolate salt butter bites and our regular butter bites. I'll just show you what that looks like when it comes out. Those are the beautiful crispy bits there. That's this. It tastes kind of salty in the salt one. If you use 2 sticks of salted butter, it will be really salty. I find that too salty myself. These will look similar. They're not quite hard yet, so I'm not gonna pop any of these out of here, but they will look similar where they'll have like the bottom of them will have the dark brown. But that's my food prep. All of this food will probably last me 3 days, maybe 4. The butter bites will last a little longer though. But I'm thinking, you know, I usually do 2 to 3 eggs a day. So those are 8 eggs, so that should be maybe 4 days. The pork belly will be gone by tomorrow and the bacon will last a couple of days in the fridge.